Hey there, friends. My name is Sarah Mastriani-Levi, and I'm so excited that you decided to join us for another episode of A Healing Conversation. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a really interesting concept of healing through holding on lightly. So often we hold tightly to the things that are nearest and dearest to our hearts, and we can't imagine letting them go. The idea of releasing and the struggle that often comes in the release is inevitable and sometimes painful. So tonight, William and I would like to invite a guest speaker who came with a quote that was just absolutely beautiful, and with no beginning text of this is what we're going to talk about or any ideas of how it's going to go, but just really wanting to throw around the idea of holding on lightly. Tonight, joining us will be Nina Sherak, and we are just so excited to talk with her and dive into the guidance that may show up and how Spirit will speak through all of us, hopefully reaching you and bringing true healing to you and your situation, whatever it may be. So I'd like to invite them to join me now. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey, Sarah.
I'm so excited about this conversation. I know you both from the Good Life Project community, and I'm just beyond excited to talk with like minds about such a great topic. I think we all really struggle with letting go. I know that some people are just able to cut things and be done and not have that emotional connection. But we're not just talking about people relationships. We have relationships with work situations, colleagues, friends, places, feelings.
Stuff,
right? Yeah. So how do we dive into this? Nina, I would love it if you would take just a few minutes and kind of introduce yourself in the words that feel most comfortable for you, of how you would like for people to know you and what you're doing, so we can both honor you as a person and this life's work that you have created, as well as to feel free to jump in and share this beautiful quote that was kind of the instigator or the initiator of such a wonderful idea to throw around. So go for it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Sure.
It's really an honor to spend some time with you and William. I actually had said to William when we did our little connection and words to connect, to disconnect, and how I was just so drawn to your energy and how much I wanted to be a sandwich in it, and I am now literally a sandwich in your energy. So you get what you wish, you fish what you want.
Nice.
So I am here literally a sandwich in your energy. It was, it's just been a joy to connect with you, even just a few times in life. I know we were all at the Good Life Project camp, and I've watched a few of your connections together, and really love the sort of different approaches and parts of intellect and spirit and practicality and creativity and wisdom that are all called forth because of your kind of unique, similar but also very different energy. So I'm really enjoying being in that sandwich. So this is just what I wanted. So my background is I come from a creative background, actually. I used to be a dancer, but I've had a very long spiritual life. I know you and I shared a little bit about that. I've been meditating since I was a teen and been involved in science of mind studies. I've always been, I think because of my kind of leaning towards spirituality and creativity, I've always been very intuitive and just, enjoyed the play of it all. And I'm a coach. I am a resilience trainer. I do teach resilience training. And my favorite topic, I'm also a positive psychology practitioner. I'm certified positive psychology practitioner. And one of my favorite things to talk about and teach is appreciation and gratitude and the science of that, because I love the study of law of attraction. I do guide people in that. And it's a lot of where my experience and sight into the world and interaction in the world comes from the knowing and experience of how all of that works. So to your question about this particular topic, when William invited me, at the moment he actually had sent out that invite, I had come across this quote and was pondering it. So it stuck with me quite a bit. Yes. And it's from a Buddhist monk named Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo. And I have, since that moment of seeing this quote, I've seen it, read a few other things by her. But I'd be happy to introduce the quote now, unless you'd like to do something else first.
No, I'd love for you to dive in and set the stage for us.
Okay, deep breath. Everything is dancing. Even the molecules inside the cells are dancing. But we make our lives so heavy. We have these incredibly heavy burdens we carry around with us like rocks in a big rucksack. We think that carrying this big, heavy rucksack is our security. We think it grounds us. We don't realize the freedom, the lightness of just dropping it off, letting it go. And that doesn't mean giving up relationships. It doesn't mean giving up one's profession or one's family or one's home. It has nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an external change. It's an internal change. It's a change from holding on tightly to holding on very lightly.
So beautiful. William, I'd love for you to jump in and kind of just share with us how that quote lands with you and what it incites.
Oh, it's like an invitation. It's like what's coming up, an invitation to my life, right? The flow of my life. There's just so many things that it feels like it's keeping me from my life, and it's like I'm holding on to those things, right? That stuff, the relationships, or my understanding of it. And it's like within that, just really really embracing the fact that there's not a loss, because most of the times when I hold on to something, it's because I don't want to lose something, right? I don't want something to get away. So I feel like I have to protect it. William means protector. And so sometimes I take on that role too seriously. And in that protection, sometimes I hold on to things with the desire to protect, but I'm stifling. And so that's what was coming up when Nina was setting the stage. It's just, I don't need to protect that. I need to live. I need to go. I need to flow. I need to be with it all. And it's because it's not mine in the first place, right? So yeah, so that's what's coming up for me.
I'd kind of like to jump into the idea that the divine masculine is often defined by pursue, provide, and protect. And to be able to kind of like hold this structure. And here, hold it together, right? And here we have this really unique idea of holding lightly. How does that change the way you show up for a connection in the dynamic of being the holder of the container? And Nina, if you want to follow him just by saying in the divine feminine, what that means, how you can be expansive to the point where you're not necessarily breaking the walls of that container, how that can show up.
That's a great question, and there have been many times where I don't want to say I did it wrong, right? But it didn't feel like I was protecting, right? It felt like I was stifling. It felt like that, and even though my words were, I am protecting you, damn it, right? Type of thing. It wasn't received that way. And so the more that I have embraced that, I think the protector, that almost like a guardian, right? Type of like, there is a level of awareness, and I know, and it's like I just got an image of a bouncer at a club, right? It's like if something pops off, then I'll do something. But other than that, everything is good. So that's so that's how it's shown up for me, and that's how it's. I think I allow the feminine energy to show up, also when they know that they're protected, but they're not stifled at the same time.
Oh, that's beautiful. Nina.
Thank you for the question. I hadn't thought about it from a kind of masculine and feminine energy, but it's certainly when you invite the feminine energy concept in, I think of nurturer. And, of course, part of our instinct to nurture comes from attachment, because attachment makes us want to nurture and invest in the outcome of what that thing that we are nurturing, right? So there's a bit of attachment to outcome, and that's where that passion comes in. And I think about what that means from a nurture standpoint. And one thing that strikes me just as really phenomenal about this whole concept is that a lot of people talk about letting go, and they just pontificate like, what does it mean to let go? How do you let go? And what does it mean to be mindful? And what does it mean to be like even spiritually light and to have a life of freedom? And what does it mean to create relationships, with, and to let go when you need to let go, like know when to let go. But here we are taking this view from the other standpoint of going, well, what does it mean to hold on lightly? Because how do we appreciate and really savor and live this life we have? We're here traveling and journeying through time, right? So we have this gift, this opportunity to experience this experience of life. And what would that mean to like hold on lightly? So to actually like not kind of promulgate yourself like you gotta let go, but like no, like you get to and you can and an invitation to hold on lightly, to actually like savor it, to and just to go fully into the experience of the relationships of the people and things and experiences that we have. I guess it's all relationships. You started with that kind of angle, but to go in and saying, I'm going to hold on, like there is a holding, but it's light, so that I can dance with it, right?
Beautiful.
That's what the music.
It's an interesting image that came to my mind just now. Some of my friends know that over the past couple of years, I started back to dancing. I used to dance a lot more when I was younger in salsa and bachata. And I go to these kind of social dancing circles. Well, circle is not the right word. It's not circle dancing, but, I'm hanging out a place where they do that. And, so many of them come from these dance schools as this is their social outing, kind of to practice what they've done. And they're all like, well, when are you going to come to one of the schools and to start taking lessons and to jump in with us and really start learning all this fancy stuff? And it's not that I don't want to learn, because anybody who knows me knows I'm crazy about learning as much as possible. It's that I am in control of so many things in my life that it is really a very powerful learning experience for me to go in and not know what to do and have to learn to follow that. It's that letting go. And when you have a great male lead who is able to lead, he can hold very lightly and still be in absolute guidance for the dance to occur with just the right cues. So that's kind of the image that came up as you talked about dancing by holding lightly for me.
So I wonder how this translates for us to like a sense of healing. I know that initially William had mentioned sort of a concept about suffering. And so, and when we, how does that interplay for you? That the concept of suffering and healing by holding on lightly. I'm really curious on how you put that together.
I think for me that within the process of healing, there is this, I got this image of a tourniquet. I guess that's what it is, where, you're you're bleeding or something. You wanted to stop the bleeding and everything like that. And then there's a point where it slows down, and you then can start the treatment, of it and everything. And as you can tell, I'm not a medical person at all, but this is just the image that I'm getting. And so recognizing that I am still close, I'm still within reach of assistance, of healing within the process of it, but there is no longer a need of pressure, of holding tight to something. And I just wanted to explore that after I cause suffering, right? After there was a traumatic situation, in the process of, maybe just seconds of that holding lightly, that moment of that holding lightly is a part of the healing. It's not just letting go. It is that slow let go, that everything is fine, that last squeeze, that this is going to be okay, type of thing. And so I just wanted to explore that within the process, there is that moment where the healing begins from that light hold.
I love it. As you were talking, I couldn't help but get that image in my mind also of, they talk about grasping for water, and you're holding, and it's falling between your fingers, and you have to hold your fingers just enough to be able to drink the water, but not enough that it's going to all just go out of your hand. That
Right.
flow of just allowing it to be, and that you can never really hold on to any of it. It will just flow through you anyways.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, I've mentioned a couple times the trauma within my marriage, and during that time, I had the image of sand. Like, I love the beach, but I had this image of me trying to hold on to my marriage, right? The sand. And the tighter that I squeezed to the sand, it was just seeping out in all the spots, right? All of the places that it could go. And within that, I started opening my hand and not holding on to what my image of my marriage. And now there's a nice little, puddle of sand that I get to nurture and be a part of and pay attention to, right? Right. And do all the other kind of stuff. And so, so that image just came up for me again, that the one way that I can celebrate 30 years next week is by holding lightly to my marriage. Right.
I can't help but think about this puddle of sand that you describe in almost a kind of pitiful way. But I just, when I think about sand, we build these sand castles.
Right.
They get washed away, and the sand is still there, and we can build another sand castle and another sand castle. In Access Consciousness, they talk about destroying and uncreating everything that we were before in order to create something anew each day. And that is just the perfect example of, like, would you build it if you knew it was going to disappear tomorrow?
Wow.
So that, I love that. If embrace it, it's just to embrace that concept, Sarah, of building something anew each day. Because I was thinking about what is it that would enable us to hold on lightly? What is it, that concept or belief that do we need to embrace? And I think I just was thinking that, wondering it, and I believe you answered it, that would be the thing. How is it that holding on lightly enables us to heal and adapt And so what do we embrace so that we are able to hold on lightly, so we really can know that as our way? And I believe you answered that with this, the understanding and recognition that we are meant to rebuild every day, that we are meant to be malleable,
Mm.
and
To choose
just,
it.
yeah, to choose it, and
Mm.
to trust and allow, as well, allow the changing nature of all things, and that we are meant to be part of that changing nature, and adapt to it.
Yeah. I recall several years ago, I had a friend when I lived in Israel, and he and his wife had these just stunning vegetable gardens that they were super invested in. And they'd work all year round, and I'd go and buy vegetables from them. And I think it was like every summer they would go to India for like 2 or 3 months. They were studying Buddhism, and they would go to this ashram there. And I'd always be like, who's going to take care of your gardens when you're away? And I can just remember him looking at me and kind of puzzled, and he was like, gardens are temporary. They're only here for a season. You always get the chance to start over again. And when you have a garden, especially when you're growing vegetables, you're needing to start seedlings, not just at the beginning of every season, but several times throughout the season, so that you'll have a continuous production of crops. So it's something that we have to nurture, but allow it to be completely destroyed at times, to go completely fallow, so that we can start again.
So this concept really enables us to, it's like a remedy for the suffering that's caused from attachment.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's temporary, right?
Yeah. And it's the attachment that causes the suffering. And embracing the holding on lightly enables us to not fear, to be fully experiencing it all, fully, loving the people that we love, knowing that it's, our existence is temporary. The gardens of our life is temporary.
Right. It's the, within the framework of disconnect to connect, right? Because it's all a part of these type of conversations, the healing conversation and the one word conversation. I have been embracing that we are never disconnected, right? And so it's like I'm trying to follow this now into what we were talking about with attachments and everything. But we have the feelings that we are disconnected. And I think when we feel that we are disconnected, then we can, have all type of crazy things. And that's when we try to hold tightly to the things, the people and all that other kind of stuff. But the recognition that, what's coming to mind is the GLP community, is that it was a community that I didn't know I needed, but I'm glad I found, right? And then when our public gatherings stopped, there was an initial thing like, holy crap, how are we going to get together and all that kind of stuff? And then I had to step back and realize that we're always connected. We wasn't aware of our connection. Now we are aware of our connection, and we have access to each other, like in an email or a Facebook post or something. And so I hold loosely to that community, because anytime I try to recreate that space or try to hold on to it, it just falls apart. It just falls through my hands like the water and the sand. But because we are connected. And so where are we when we look at suffering and we look at our attachments? And I think, is there a difference from an attachment and a connection? That's the question that I have. Is it just, language, right?
Mhm.
Or does an attachment feel different than a connection?
I don't know the right answer to that question.
Yeah, I don't know
There's
But
probably a lot of,
Webster-wise, but I know that the words have a different kind of vibration
yeah,
for us.
I feel it differently too.
Yeah, there's like an
Attachment feels
expectation.
heavier, and it just is
There's
like almost like a
fear.
leech, as opposed to a connection, which is just like goes both directions easily.
Yeah, there's
Attachment feels
freedom.
more one-sided.
And there's freedom. There's a sense of freedom
Mhm.
with connection of it'll appear and happen however it does, which is really what you were describing, William.
right.
And attachment feels like there is an imposed intention
Hmm.
of on that, which is driven by some kind of fear of loss.
Hmm. Wow. Hmm. So we're so I don't say so we need to get rid of an attachment, right? Right, you know?
Well,
I don't
or
know,
hold
but
on lightly, or
or hold on lightly, right?
because
Yeah.
I mean, so let's say, what are the positives? Let's explore what are the positive things about attachment. I mean,
Right,
it's even though it has for us some sort of shadows to it,
right,
right? But it's not all dark. The whole concept
right.
of attachment.
Mhm.
So we're sensing that as well.
Mhm. For me, I think of as a child develops in utero, the attachment to the placenta in the mother's body is very nurturing. And it's not just a random connection. Hey, oh, here's a placenta, let's hook up kind of thing. But it's like, and
What a pickup line.
yeah, I don't even want to imagine how that goes down. But, here's a place where physically attached is a necessity to grow.
Mm.
So it's certainly not all shadow connotations here.
Mm.
And
But
and even
letting go is required for continued existence.
yeah, that is good. That is good. Yeah. There's a lot of animals that people, how can I say this? That people would consider to be pests or things that they don't understand exactly what their point is. Like, why are mosquitoes important and slugs?
Right.
But when you think about a lot of the animals that attach in ways like that, they're actually helping to break down and helping to let go. That it's so important to have soils turned and things so that the attachment of the roots release and the plant breaks down in different ways. That attachment or these seemingly I don't know if I'm exaggerating by saying unclear purposes. I mean, there's probably biologists out there that are like, I know exactly what that's going on and why that's important. And I just think there's a lot of people that I encounter that are like, oh, I just wish the mosquitoes never were invented or something like that. But
Right.
what are they actually doing? What is their purpose here? And so many of those kinds of things are to help us to learn to let go in different ways or to be not attached.
I think the one thing that has been coming up a lot within this conversation is nurture and nurturing. And so I am trying to, I want to say understand, but really appreciate where nurturing comes in the beginning of attachments, right? And after, in the releasing of the attachments, right? There is, I mean, it's like the nurturing seems to have like two jobs, right? Right? And it's there is just this feeling that most of the times when there's nurturing not involved, that's when the suffering, that's when healing can't happen, right? That's when we lose access to, I guess, the healing nature in the process within that. And then there is this, I don't want to say, this sucking of this attachment is now, sucking the energy, the nutrients, the purpose, out of, a situation. I think it could get, having a bandage on for too long, right, can get very dicey, right? And, there is, as I say, you need to give it air to breathe, right? And sometimes we don't give our attachments air to breathe, right?
I like what you're saying. It's like overwatering your garden.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
For me, the red flag that comes up in that whole process is when we outsource our nurturing and we don't realize the importance of the self-care, and that it's okay for other people to nurture us, yes, but it is not okay for us to expect them to be the salve for everything. It is unreasonable to put that on one person, and any person other than ourselves is the only one that we can absolutely depend on, and sometimes have to struggle through to nurture ourselves when we're down and out. But that is the relationship that needs to be nurtured the most as far as self-care goes. Oftentimes, you guys know that I pull cards before, and I'm going to just take a few minutes to share a little bit of what came up, and maybe something else from what I'll share will lead to where we need to go next. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to try and pull it up here. Do you want to pull it up to the full screen so that everyone can see them more clearly?
Absolutely.
For a minute. Okay. So I pull cards and ask Spirit to guide us what we need to share and what we need to give and why we're here to speak on this topic. So here's some cards that came up tonight. One was this gratitude card. Find just one thing that you feel grateful for now and let that gratitude pour through your body. It is a healing balm, like the warmth of the sun. And then from a separate deck, I pulled 3 cards that reminded me that healing through letting go or holding lightly is very much an uncharted sea. That's what we're going through right now. Everything is very confusing, not only with this letting go dynamic or holding lightly, but also with everything else that's happening for us. We're all in uncharted territory right now. We are offered the awakening of genius and the wisdom of ancestors that I think that so often we forget about. Those who nurtured us or prayed for us long before we were ever born, or it may not even be in a religious way, who thought forward enough to take care of the generations to come. So awakening the genius and the wisdom and being able to create something new as we move forward by really leaning into the support of spirit guides, ancestors, and those that want to support us on our paths. And then this beautiful card of shining through, that even in all the beauty that's happening and is available around us, that we each have our own gifts to be able to shine through and offer that to others. A few animals showed up, and the first one was the spider spirit, make your dreams real, but you can't help but see how much the web links us all together and how much we're connected to each other. As William said earlier, that this connection, this disconnect to connect brought him to the understanding that we're all connected. So spider reminds us of that, as well as owl spirit, you see clearly now. So you get to lean into the wisdom and the vision of what's going to be shown to you. Just open your intuition and breathe into that. And the last card I pulled was this wonderful card of wonder from our dear Anita, that embody your destiny deck. That is just really leaning into, wow, what does that mean? That childlike wonder of what's going to show up. So come on back, guys, and see if there's anything that was discussed there that made you think or feel anything that we should talk about.
I think the biggest thing that with all of those were beautiful cards, was the uncharted seas, and just I don't know if it's my my fear that I'm not a good swimmer, right? Or my desire to just know where I'm going at all times, or that over knowing. But that just really stuck out to me, that there's so much of this journey that I'm on now, this healing journey of sorts, that it's uncharted. And there's been this sense for me that when you're suffering so long, or there's awareness of suffering, you just believe that the suffering is your life. And so really it is uncharted waters or sea to have a life without suffering. And so really to embrace that is what stuck out to me in the cards that you shared.
I wonder if also, William, it's about holding on lightly to that life of suffering. That life is meant to have that contrast of suffering. I'm just wondering if that could be part of it,
Yeah, because we live in a society that drop the mic, cut the cords, just kind of be done with it, your ghost, all that other kind of thing, and act as if those experiences or that person, no longer exists. And I think for me, it feels like, can I hold space for the remembrance of suffering, right? Or the understanding or the appreciation of it as I go through the healing, right? As that process begins, as on the other side. And it is, I don't think I know the answer to that, because there's a feeling that I just want to experience something different. I want to have this ease to my life. I want to have this the wonder card is coming up now, and it's like I wonder how what's on the other side of all of this, right? And go from there. So yeah, I recognize on a level the importance of holding lightly to that, and but at least for a moment, the experience that there is suffering, or my current understanding of that suffering doesn't exist at all.
It feels like when we're suffering, we want to do anything we can to get out of it.
Right.
And we don't love the suffering.
We don't want to hold it tightly or loosely.
No, we don't. We don't. And it's like, when someone says just be with it, I mean, that's the most uncomfortable thing, like I'll leave it. I don't want to be with it. I want to leave it. I don't want to ride the waves. I want to get off the boat. Right.
Right. Wow.
I think this has been really special, just diving into the different ways that suffering, like I'm trying to think, how can we hold suffering lightly? How can we still allow a place for it to exist, knowing that it needs to be there, in the dualistic thinking between joy to create that differentiation, but also Do we try and minimize it?
Hmm.
What if it lasts a really long time? Do we have to hold it lightly for a really long time?
I know. And is that a realistic thing to ask?
Yeah.
I was really struck by one of the cards just now, and it was the one with the spider and the spider web, because I thought, certainly it's not more than, it's on so many occasions. Nature is a wonderful, gives us wonderful analogies for healing. It's
Right.
nature and our animal allies are such incredible teachers to us all. And just looking at that card, I felt like I received a lesson. When you look at the incredible artistic efforts that the spider takes to make this geometrical masterpiece, right?
Yeah.
Of the thinnest, most transient material ever, right? Just for its survival. And then it could be a breeze, it could be us walking by, it could be a leaf falling, a rain coming, and it's destroyed, right? And I don't know, so, like, such suffering it endures after just spending countless hours weaving
Does
this.
it? Does it
I don't
suffer?
know. I don't
Right.
know. Maybe it just, you're right. Maybe it doesn't suffer, but it gets destroyed and it rebuilds. So that we do know, right? So
It does get destroyed.
and it does rebuild, and just like the garden at the end of the year goes. So maybe it's that matter of factness of the transient nature of suffering and pleasure that we can embrace, that helps us to hold on lightly, but you're right. Maybe we don't know. Nature maybe perhaps is in so much more flow that it is able to process suffering with
Who knows?
yeah.
I mean, like the absolute dichotomy of that would be, or the antithesis of that would be, like the spider loves its work and just waits for the web to be destroyed. Yay, I get to build another one. I've been waiting. I wasn't allowed to build another one until this one was done.
Right.
We project our human tendencies of destruction to be something of suffering.
True.
And what if it's
true. It just is, right? It builds
Right.
it and rebuilds it. Yeah. And it's not like the garden is weeping because it's the end of the season and the plant dies. It just is, right?
Right.
It's
the one thing that was going through my head is, like you were saying, Sarah, how we put our human characteristics on nature, on animals, and everything. It's like the Disney, response would be, this masterpiece. I've created this masterpiece, and oh my God, and then now I'm this person. Now I'm at odds with this person who destroyed my web now, and so now I'm going to like find out where he lives and kind of like haunt him. That's how we as humans think of things.
vindication, yeah.
Right. So it's like, so, if nature, acted that way, I think the humans would be in trouble, right?
True.
I think we're getting some very clear messages from Mother Nature about how we're not treating her correctly.
Right. And so it is just more that, so I guess there are more lessons from nature that I think we can hold lightly too. So we, wow, that just came up. Instead of just putting my human take on everything, let's see what nature has to say. And maybe we can be, dare I say, better humans because of it, right?
Agree. Law of attraction, there's a lot of messages in those teachings about how our animal friends are so easy to flow with suffering, with pain and suffering, and they just are with it, and death as well, and the messages that so much come through that they just flow in and out of life, and in and out of suffering, and that humans make too much of it. Like we take it all too seriously. We make too much of a big deal out of it, all of that attachment, because ultimately, ultimately from the moment we're born, we're on this trajectory to let go of life, right?
Hmm.
So that attachment to actual life itself is
Mm-hmm.
is so predominant in our every single moment,
Right.
and nature doesn't have that. Like we
Mm-hmm.
have a mental suffering about losing life that's we don't talk about in day-to-day conversations, but it is always there,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and nature doesn't have that like
Mm-hmm.
as much. We make
Right.
too much of it, perhaps.
And I don't know how many conversations I had. I had a beautiful conversation with Harmony, and our word was death. And just the fact of facing our mortality caused her, and using her words, to show up in her life more fully. And it's like we are on this road to letting go life, but we're trying to hold on to life. And when we recognize or come to terms with or are confronted by our mortality and death, then it's like, okay, I'm just gonna live now. It's like, so it's like that just blows my mind, right? Oh boy.
Without that duality, sometimes we don't realize things.
Hmm.
This idea of letting go from the moment we leave the womb,
Right.
that we're dying a little bit every day. Sometimes for drama, you can say, I'm dying, and so are you, right? But
Right.
but it's true, right? Like I'm
Hmm.
living, and so are you. I'm dying, and
Right.
so are you. It's kind of the same thing. It's just
Right.
got some stop and end points. I do think that there are elements of nature that are sentient in ways that we are as well with the detachment process. I certainly can remember when I had goats, and I can remember delivering lots of baby kids, and had a few stillborn births, and just seeing the mother stand over the body and be really, really saddened, and just kind of like sit there and just be really sad about it all, and
Hmm.
not know how to comfort. So there is connection of something that we've built or done or grown or nurtured, or we want. I think one of the hardest things is when we want to nurture something that doesn't want to be nurtured by us.
Hmm.
When we
Yeah.
want to give more than other people allow or are willing to receive. And how often in life are we that mama goat standing over the body of something that we put a lot of work into growing and building
Right.
that just doesn't come to fruition?
Right.
But nature does know about how it just has to be let go of, and to hold lightly to the emotion. I know that so many projects that we make, not just people that we grow in our bodies, but also projects that are our temporary babies, right? That we make, and we put so much stock into them being successful,
Right.
and then like you do the launch. Sometimes it's great,
Right.
and
Right.
sometimes it just falls flat, and you're like, why can't I give this offering that I want to give to the world? And how do we hold that process lightly when we want nothing more than to be of service and nurturing, and it just doesn't work out?
I guess
Right.
we hold on to grief lightly as well.
Hmm.
you know
Hmm.
Sure.
Wow. I
Grief
think,
never leaves, right?
right. It never.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Are you guys familiar with, I can't really do a sketch right now, but there is, if you can imagine a box with a button on the side of the box, and a ball that's in the box, that's grief. And it's that initially, that ball that's in the box, every time it hits that button, it hurts really bad. Mm-hmm. And over time, that ball becomes a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller. And so it doesn't, as it's bouncing around, it doesn't hit the button as frequently, but still when it hits and it hurts as badly as it did the first time, just less frequently, or less frequently. But if life was just a schematic, that would be easy because the ball would get smaller and smaller and slowly dissipate completely. But the way life is it continues to throw new balls in the box.
Wow.
Unfortunately. So how do we just have to hold the container of the box lightly.
Wow.
Yeah. And even the shape of the box, just allowing it to change shapes. It's getting very dented.
For sure. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's still a beautiful box. Just the whole idea of what your box should look like, and the concept of the shape of you, and all the things that make up who you are.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
William, do you have any kind of takeaways from our conversation?
That box really got me there, right? It's like, but the one thing that is really showing up for me right now is, and that I'm going to take away, is the nurturing aspect. And I think I mentioned it before, and it's kind of sitting with me. In that, I don't want to say looking for it, but recognizing that in the process of, letting go my attachments, there is going to be, maybe some grief, maybe some disappointments, maybe a lot of other emotions that that I can nurture through. And just kind of sitting with the suffering and the and the pain and the disappointments and all that, and not just wanting to just be relieved of it. And so, holding lightly for me is gentle, and with compassion and care. I just got this image of, you're seeing someone hurt, and you kind of gingerly touch, them too, because you want to, in some cases, see how badly, right? And create some comfort, in that moment. And I think that level of care and gentleness is what's, I think I'm taking away from this conversation. So thank you.
That's beautiful. Nina, what's coming up for you?
I love all the analogies that we explored. I think that they were such useful places to go as we explored this concept of holding on lightly, and attachment and nurturing, and what it means to us. So I'm definitely just taking away, and I invite everyone to do the same, is just looking at all aspects of my life, in relationships with people, relationships with self, even physical interactions with the material world around us, and wonder where would it serve me better to be holding on lightly, to just sort of make a little space, allow for perhaps movement, allow for things to dissolve and be regenerated. Where might holding on lightly allow for some transmutation, and also allow us for the kind of lessen suffering and enable the regeneration and transformation of something new, and just allow love and appreciation as opposed to the fear of limitation, of loss. So all of these things have kind of spin through my head, and just embrace holding on lightly, as opposed to the letting go, which just when you say those words, it implies too much of something. It's like telling someone, stop thinking about blue dogs. You're thinking about blue dogs, but it's that same kind of concept of instead of letting go, hold on lightly. It's just the more affirmative forward action.
I think so often when we are in a connection, a friendship, relationship, parent-child relationship, or partner relationship, whatever it may be. And one of the quotes that's really sat with me over this past year, as I've been considering this topic of holding on lightly for a while now, but probably not exactly in exactly the words that we've brought up today. I read a quote that said, let someone do what they want to do, and then you'll see what they'd rather do.
Wow.
And whatever they would rather do, that gives me a lot of perspective of how tightly I should be holding. And for me also, I think as humans with goals and with ideas, we are very driven, and we have a tendency to chase after what we want, to really run full speed ahead. If we're allowed to pick up acceleration, we will go until we hit a speed bump.
Right.
And ironically, I know, William, you've heard me say this more, but or say this before, that for me, a very clear realization that I've had has been just kind of drop a lot of those goals and listen more and pivot faster and stop chasing. Stop chasing. You can have an idea, but be open enough and hold the container lightly enough that spirit can move you on that uncharted sea, wherever you need to go.
Right.
So I want to thank everyone who's taken the time to join us. I hope that some of you have written comments as you've listened to this and given us ideas. We would love to hear other ways that you can think of and other aspects that we didn't even talk about in the limited time that we had here, of how you have come to an understanding or a familiarity with holding something lightly, and how that can be a very healing connection for you. Please enlighten us, because we know so much of the wisdom that is available to us is in our community, and that the right words will land on the right ears at the right time. We trust that divine timing. We thank you for taking the time to honor us, and that what we had to share was meaningful to you if you made it to this point in the program. So we bless you all. Nina, thank you so much for coming on. You are such a lovely, lovely soul. I'm so excited that we had this time with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Blessings.
Blessings.